Hey there, welcome to Living Stoic Way. This channel isn't for people looking for quick comfort, it's for those who want real strength and resilience. Stoicism shows you how to stand firm through challenges, control your emotions, and master yourself. If you're ready, let's dive right in and start the journey together. Part 1. Holding on to a minute of silence in a noisy world. Let's pause for just a moment. Right now, whether you're watching this in a small room, in a noisy cafe, or even on a crowded bus, I want to invite you to hold on to just 1 minute of silence with me. Just 1 minute. 1 minute to hear your own breath, to realize that after all the unread messages, the deadlines breathing down your neck, the expectations from family, friends, coworkers, you still have one space left. A small, hidden, but incredibly important space, the space of inner peace. Modern life and the invisible chaos. We live in an age overflowing with information, but starving for silence. Every single day, we're hit with hundreds of news updates, notifications, reminders, and ads. Our phones buzz nonstop. Social media shouts at us, "Pay attention to me. Don't miss this. Look at me." And in that constant rush, we forget something important. Peace doesn't disappear because we're weak or incapable. Peace disappears the moment we allow things that don't belong to us to invade our minds. I know this because I've been caught in that cycle myself. When I was younger, I thought I had to do everything, prove to everyone that I was good enough, worthy enough. But the harder I ran, the more exhausted I felt, until one day, I asked myself, who am I really living for? Do all those noises out there even belong to me? The big question, how do we keep our calm? I believe each of us has this quiet question echoing deep inside. How do I hold on to calm in a world this chaotic? And that's not some distant, abstract philosophy. It's a very practical question. Because if we don't learn how to stay grounded, chaos will drag us around. It will turn us into people who only react to everything, instead of people who take charge of our own lives. Have you ever felt that morning when you grab your phone before even saying hello to the day, and suddenly your mind is flooded with texts, emails, breaking news? Before you even get a chance to breathe, your head is already pulled into dozens of problems that don't actually belong to you. Peace doesn't vanish because you're weak. It vanishes because you've let too many things from the outside take up space within you. Stoicism, the path back to stillness. Let me share with you a path that philosophers in ancient Greece and Rome walked thousands of years ago. They called it Stoicism. At first, it might sound distant, old, outdated, but the truth is, Stoicism has never been out of date. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, known as the philosopher on the throne, once wrote in his Meditations, "Do not let your soul be carried away by what doesn't belong to it. Return inward. There you will find strength." The first time I read those words, I stopped for a long time. Because that's exactly what we're missing today, a place to return to, a foundation to stand on, an anchor of peace in the middle of the storm we call modern life. Stoicism doesn't teach escape. Here's the interesting part. Stoicism doesn't tell you to run away from society, to live in a cave, or cut yourself off from the world. Quite the opposite, it teaches you how to stand firm right in the middle of the noise. It's like learning to balance when the waves crash in, not by running away from the ocean, but by knowing how to plant your feet, when to let go, and when to hold strong. The Stoics believe this. We cannot control what happens out there, loss, rumors, criticism, the chaos of life, but we can control how we respond. And it's in that choice, in that very moment, that we find calm. A simple example. Imagine you're driving on the highway. Someone suddenly cuts you off. Your first instinct, anger, maybe honking, yelling, swearing. But Stoicism asks you one question: will your anger change anything? Will it make the road safer? Will it make you calmer? The answer is no. In fact, your anger only hurts you. Your blood pressure rises, your heart races, your day suddenly feels heavy, all because of one moment you couldn't control. The Stoic way is different. Take a breath, accept that the other driver is outside your control, and keep going. Calm not because you're weak, but because you know how valuable your inner peace really is. A personal experience. There was a season in my career when I faced constant criticism, articles, comments on social media, some of them personal, even cruel. At first, I fought back. I spent hours arguing, trying to prove them wrong, but the more I did, the more drained I felt. It wasn't until I remembered the words of Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was once a slave, yet became a master teacher, that things shifted. He said, "We are not harmed by events, but by the way we view them." That was the moment I realized what people say belongs to them, not to me. The only thing I truly control is how I respond. And from that moment, the weight lifted. A question for you. Maybe you felt the same pull, dragged around by things that don't deserve your attention. A negative comment online, a careless word from someone close, a piece of news that has nothing to do with your life, but still leaves you unsettled. What if, in those moments, you paused and asked yourself, does this really belong to me, or am I just letting my mind be carried away for no reason? You might find, even for a brief moment, a pocket of silence, enough to breathe, enough to be calm again. The promise of Stoicism. Stoicism doesn't promise a life without storms, but it gives you a compass, so even when you walk straight into the storm, you still know which way is forward. And that's what I want to explore with you in this video. In the next few minutes, we'll go deeper. How do we apply Stoicism in modern life? How do we hold on to calm, not just for a single minute of silence, but for the entire journey of a noisy, unpredictable world? Stay with me. I believe you'll find something here, not the answer to everything, but a small key. And sometimes, that's all you need to open the door to the peace you've been searching for. Part 2. Why our minds lose their calm so easily. Have you ever wondered why it's so easy to get angry, anxious, or unsettled? It's not because you're weak. It's not because you lack ability. The truth is, most of us carry around invisible traps, habits, and beliefs that quietly steal our peace. Today, I want to walk you through 4 of those traps. Once you can see them clearly, you'll understand yourself better, and that's the first step to breaking free. 1. False expectations, wanting everything to go your way. We grow up believing that if we just try hard enough, if we're smart enough, kind enough, then life will work out the way we want. But reality doesn't follow that script. The sun doesn't shine just because you planned a picnic. The person you love can leave, even when you thought your love was forever. That dream job can slip away, even after years of preparation. And in the gap between expectation and reality, that's where disappointment is born. The Stoics remind us, don't demand that the world bend to you. Learn to live in harmony with the world as it is. At first, that might sound harsh, but in reality, it's liberating. Because once you stop forcing life to match your expectations, you feel lighter. Think about it. If today you hit an obstacle, instead of asking, "Why didn't this go my way?" you could ask, "How can I adapt to what's happening right now?" That single shift in perspective can bring your mind so much more peace. 2. Clinging to what you can't control. One of the greatest lessons of Stoicism is knowing the difference between what's in our control and what's not. But here's the paradox. Most of us spend our energy obsessing over the things we'll never control. We worry about what others think of us. We try to change our partner's emotions or our family's opinions. We want to control the stock market, the global news cycle, the twists of fate. But all of that lives outside our circle of control, and when we cling to it, we sign ourselves up for a battle we can never win. I remember a period in my life when I was consumed by online criticism. I thought if I just explained myself enough, prove myself enough, then everyone would see my good intentions. But no, there will always be people who dislike you, no matter what you do. That's when I remembered the words of Epictetus. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. If you cling to what is not yours, you will lose your freedom. From that moment, I began to let go. I stopped trying to control other people's emotions. Instead, I focused on what I could control: my words, my actions, the way I carried myself. And here's the paradox: the more I let go, the calmer I felt. 3. Overwhelmed by information and social media. Let's be honest for a second. How many times do you pick up your phone in a day? How many times do you say, "I'll just scroll for a minute," but then 30 minutes, an hour, even an entire afternoon slips away? The digital world is like a never-ending storm. News, images, videos, comments, they all rush at us like a flood. And if we're not careful, we get swept away. When your mind is constantly filled with endless information, there's no room left to hear yourself. The real you gets buried under the waves of likes, shares, and comments. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Guard your mind. If you let others take it, you will lose yourself." I remember a time when I spent days glued to my phone. My head felt foggy, my mood short-tempered. Finally, I turned it off and spent an afternoon just walking in the park. No music, no messages, no social media. Just the sound of my footsteps and the wind passing by. And strangely, within just a few hours, I felt like my mind had been washed clean. I realized peace doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from having the courage to turn down the noise. 4. Losing connection with yourself. The most dangerous thing isn't the noise outside, it's when you can no longer hear your own voice inside. We're so busy that we forget to ask ourselves, what do I really need? Where do I truly want my life to go? Instead, we chase other people's standards. The career should look like this. The body should look like that. The life should shine like those perfect Instagram posts. But deep down, we feel empty because we've drifted too far from ourselves. The Stoics believe this. Every important answer is already inside you, but to hear it, you have to stop, listen, and reconnect. One practice I often recommend to my students is journaling. Not the kind of journal where you just write what you ate or where you went, but asking yourself real, honest questions. What stirred me today? How did I react when something unexpected happened? What could I have done differently to stay calmer? When you write it out, you see yourself more clearly, and the more you reconnect with yourself, the easier it is to find the peace you thought you lost. Final note. These 4 traps: false expectations, clinging to what you can't control, drowning in information, and losing connection with yourself are why our minds lose their calm so easily. It's not your fault. These traps are built into modern life. But here's the good news: the moment you recognize them, you've already taken half a step out. The next step is learning how to apply Stoic principles. so you can hold steady in the face of these traps. And that's exactly what we'll dive into next, how to practice Stoicism in your daily moments, so you're no longer swept away by the chaos of the outside world. Part 3, Stoicism, a philosophy for the busy, of the stressed, and the overreactive. If you're watching this, chances are you're like so many people out there, a day that starts with coffee but ends in exhaustion, deadlines piling up, emails you haven't replied to, meetings stacked on top of each other, and on top of that, the silent pressures of family and relationships. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to lose your cool over something tiny? How one unanswered email keeps you awake at night, or how a single glance, a careless comment, can set your nerves on edge? I've been there too. I know what it feels like to drown in waves where the harder you fight, the more exhausted you become. And then I found Stoicism. I realized this philosophy isn't some distant, ancient idea. It's a compass for people like us, people who are busy, stressed, and too quick to react. The 3 pillars of Stoicism. To understand Stoicism in its simplest form, remember these 3 pillars. 1. Distinguish what you can control from what you cannot. Imagine you're holding an umbrella in a storm. You can't stop the rain. You can't stop the wind. But you can open the umbrella, slow your pace, or find shelter. That's Stoicism in a nutshell. The world outside is full of turbulence, economic shifts, politics, even the way other people think of you. You can't control all of that. And if you try, you'll just spiral into endless worry. But here's what you can control: your reaction, your words, your actions, the perspective you choose. Once you accept this boundary, anxiety loosens its grip, and instead of wasting energy on the impossible, you focus on what's truly within your power. 2. Respond with reason. Don't let emotions drive. Modern life makes us hostages to emotion. A delayed text makes you feel unimportant. A small critique ruins your whole night. But the Stoics believe these emotions aren't bad, but if you let them steer the ship, you'll drift off course. Think back to the last time you lost your temper. A few minutes later, didn't you regret how you reacted? That's because your emotions took over, and reason never got the chance to speak. The Stoic approach isn't to deny emotion, but to see it for what it is: a visitor. Anger, worry, jealousy, they come, they go. If you can pause, breathe, and remind yourself, this moment will pass, you'll see you don't have to be a slave to your emotions. 3. Accept reality, then act on your values. This is where Stoicism stands apart. It doesn't just say, tough it out, or grin and bear it. Stoicism teaches us to accept reality as it is and then act from our values. You don't always get to choose your circumstances, but you always get to choose how you live within them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Love your fate. Amor fati, love what happens, because it was woven for your growth." In other words, instead of asking, "Why me?" you can ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I act in a way that honors my values?" That is the true strength of Stoicism: accepting without giving up, acting without clinging to the illusion of total control. Applying Stoicism to modern life. These 3 pillars might sound philosophical, but the truth is you can use them in your everyday life in very practical ways. At work. When a project runs into trouble, instead of snapping at your coworkers, pause and ask yourself, what's in my control? Maybe it's how I communicate, how I approach solutions, and what's not, my boss's attitude or final decisions. By focusing only on what's in your hands, you stay calmer and, surprisingly, more effective. In family life, when a loved one says something hurtful, remember you can't control their words, but you can control your reaction. You can choose silence for a moment instead of saying something you'll regret. On social media, when you read a negative comment, ask yourself, does this really belong to me, or is it just a reflection of their mood? Once you see that boundary, the chaos in your head loses its power. With yourself. When stress builds, try writing it down in 3 simple columns. 1. What I control. 2. What I don't control. 3. What I choose to act on according to my values. It's a simple exercise, but incredibly powerful. It clears the noise in your head and brings clarity. A personal experience. There was a time in my life when I was so busy I was completely burned out. My calendar was packed. My phone never stopped buzzing, and I found myself snapping at people I cared about, simply because I was overwhelmed. It wasn't until I started applying the 3 Stoic pillars that I regained balance. I learned to let go of what wasn't mine to carry, like worrying about what others thought. I learned to pause before reacting, instead of letting anger take the wheel. And I learned to accept reality, even when work didn't go as planned, so I could focus on the one thing that truly mattered, living true to my values. The result wasn't a perfect life, but it was a steadier mind. A final note. Stoicism isn't some dusty philosophy meant only for ancient sages. It's a survival tool for us, the busy, the stressed, the easily triggered people living in today's world. If you can hold on to these 3 pillars, know what's in your control and what's not. Respond with reason, not emotion. Accept reality. Then act on your values. You'll have a solid framework to stay calm, even in the middle of the storm. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. Practical Stoic practices from journaling to visualization to applying it in the tiny moments of daily life. Because philosophy only matters when it becomes action. Part 4. Daily techniques to stay calm with Stoicism. Have you noticed how sometimes just one little comment, one unexpected action, can throw off your entire day? A late email, a sharp look, a careless remark on social media. And instantly, your peace is gone. Stoicism never promises to erase those situations. The world will always be noisy, unpredictable, and challenging. But Stoicism does give you practical tools, techniques you can use every single day to hold on to your calm. Let me share with you 4 simple practices you can start using today. 1. Notice your emotions before you react. Have you ever said something in anger and then regretted it just a few minutes later? That's because you reacted before you even noticed your emotion. The Stoics believed it's not events that disturb us, but the way we interpret them. In other words, emotions are signals, not absolute truths. So next time your heart races, your breath shortens, or irritation rises, pause and ask yourself, is this anger? Is it worry? Or is it just fatigue? Simply naming the emotion brings it into the light. And once it's named, it loses much of its power over you. 2. Create space between stimulus and response. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, once wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response." Stoicism reminds us to live inside that space. When a coworker says something harsh, you don't have to answer right away. When a loved one disappoints you, you don't have to explode in that moment. Try this. Take a deep breath. Count to 3. Just a few seconds. But in those seconds, reason has time to step in. And in that pause, you gain the freedom to choose a wiser response. I've practiced this technique for years. At first, it felt impossible. My instincts always pushed me to react immediately. But over time, I discovered that tiny pause became a shield protecting my inner peace. 3. Journaling morning and night. The ancient Stoics all had one thing in common. They kept journals. Marcus Aurelius's famous Meditations. It wasn't meant for the world, it was just his private journal, written for himself. Journaling wasn't about keeping memories. It was about talking honestly to yourself. In the morning, ask, what can I control today? What values do I want to live by? Write down just 2 or 3 lines. That's your compass for the day. At night, reflect. Where did I stay calm today? Where did I let emotions take over? And what can I do differently tomorrow? It takes just a few minutes, but think of it like sharpening the blade of your mind every single day. And over time, you'll notice you grow calmer, wiser, almost without effort. 4. Ask yourself, what can I control today? This may be the simplest yet most powerful Stoic tool. Whenever your mind feels overwhelmed, pause and ask, what can I control right now? You can't control the rain outside, but you can control whether you carry an umbrella. You can't control what others say, but you can control the tone of your own voice. You can't control results immediately, but you can control the effort you put in. By asking this question, you pull yourself out of the storm of worry and return to what's practical, what's real. Personally, I write this question at the top of my journal every morning, and strangely enough, just reminding myself of it lightens my mind for the entire day. A personal story. There was a period when I was under heavy stress. Work piled up, pressure from every direction. I found myself quick to anger, struggling to sleep, even losing interest in things I used to enjoy. That's when I turned to these 4 techniques. I learned to notice emotions before they turned into reactions. I practiced taking a pause, even just a few seconds, before responding. I journaled morning and night to hear myself and adjust. And every day, I reminded myself, what can I control today? The result wasn't a life without challenges, but it was a stronger mind, one that could face those challenges without breaking. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy to read about, it's an art of living. These 4 techniques don't require hours of meditation or expensive courses, just small, steady practice every day. And slowly, you'll realize peace isn't something the world gives you, it's a skill you build from within. In the next part, we'll go further into real-life situations, work, love, family, and see how Stoicism helps us respond with wisdom, calm, and humanity. Because philosophy only comes alive when it meets the everyday moments of our lives. Part 5. Real-life scenarios, Stoicism at work, in family, and in society. Stoicism isn't a philosophy you read, nod at a few beautiful quotes, and then put back on the shelf. It only comes alive when you use it in the messy, everyday situations where it's hardest to stay calm at work, with family, and in social relationships. Let's look at 4 everyday scenarios where Stoicism becomes your pressure release valve, helping you avoid being swept away by emotions. 1. When you're criticized, reason or emotion. We've all been criticized by a boss, a coworker, or maybe even some anonymous comment online. The natural reaction is to defend yourself, get angry, maybe even strike back. But the Stoic asks, does this criticism belong to me or to them? If it's valid feedback, let reason step in. What can I learn from this? If it's unfair or baseless, remember, it reflects their state of mind, not your worth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, when someone wrongs you, remember they act according to their limited understanding. you still have the choice to remain calm. I still remember the first time I was criticized publicly in a big meeting. For a moment, it felt like every eye in the room was on me. My first instinct was to fire back, but I paused, took a breath, and simply said, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll look into it." When the meeting ended, I realized that calm response earned me more respect than any defensive argument ever could. 2. When you're compared to others, focus on yourself. One of the biggest sources of anxiety today is comparison. You see a coworker moving up faster, friends buying homes, cars, traveling the world, and suddenly you feel like you're behind. But the Stoics remind us your value isn't measured by someone else's yardstick, but by how true you are to your own values. Comparison only traps you in a race with no finish line because there will always be someone richer, smarter, or more attractive. Instead, Stoicism teaches us to ask, am I better today than I was yesterday? I once had a student talented, capable, but always unhappy because she constantly compared herself to her colleagues. I asked her to try something simple every day. Journal one small way she was better than her past self. A few months later, she told me, for the first time in years, I feel free from comparison. 3. When you fail, don't turn it into a tragedy. See it as a lesson. No one likes failure, but life can't be only success. The important question isn't, how do I avoid failure? It's, how will I respond when failure comes? Stoicism treats failure as a natural part of the journey. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it. If you see failure as the end, you'll sink into tragedy. If you see failure as a lesson, you'll find it's a stepping stone to growth. I remember my first startup. I had huge hopes for it, but within a year, it collapsed. At first, I was crushed, filled with self-blame and shame. But then I asked myself if Stoicism were my guide, how would I see this? And I realized this failure taught me humility, resource management, and patience. Because of it, my later projects were far more sustainable. 4. When you succeed, stay humble. Success can be more dangerous than failure, because when we succeed, we start to believe we're untouchable. We grow arrogant, careless, and lose humility. The Stoics practiced a technique called memento mori, remember that you will die. It's not meant to be depressing. It's a reminder that all glory is temporary. Today, you may be at the top. Tomorrow, everything can change. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at his time, still wrote in his journal, "Do not let the throne make you forget you are only human." I've had seasons of big success too when the media praised me, when people celebrated my achievements. But at those moments, I reminded myself this isn't the finish line. It's just a milestone. If I get arrogant now, I'll fall faster than I climbed. And by holding on to humility, I was able to keep going further. The Stoic way in daily life. Stoicism doesn't erase criticism, comparison, failure, or success, but it gives you a new way to face them. With criticism, you choose reason over emotion. With comparison, you choose growth over envy. With failure, you choose lessons over tragedy. With success, you choose humility over arrogance. That's the Stoic way of living in the real world, calm, but not cold, strong, but still deeply human. What's next? In the next part, we'll look at a bigger question. How do you build Stoicism into a sustainable lifestyle? Not just handling one situation at a time, but making it a long-term way of life so you can walk through your whole journey with peace and purpose. Part 6. Stoicism isn't about numbness. It's about conscious awareness. There's a common misunderstanding I've heard over and over again. Stoics must be emotionless, cold, indifferent to everything. And let me be crystal clear, that's not what Stoicism is. Stoicism doesn't teach you to become a machine without feelings. Stoicism teaches you to feel everything deeply, but not let those feelings steer the ship of your life. Calm doesn't mean cold. Think of it this way: if someone you love is hurting, and you just sit there stone-faced, saying nothing, that's not Stoicism. That's disconnection. That's indifference. Marcus Aurelius himself lost several of his children. Do you think he didn't grieve? Of course he did. But he understood that pain is a natural part of being human. He wrote, "Don't say, 'I lost this.' Say instead, 'It was returned to nature.'" That doesn't mean he loved his children any less. It means his love was so deep. He had to learn acceptance so the pain didn't destroy him. Calm, in the Stoic sense, doesn't mean without feeling. It means refusing to let feelings make you their slave. Stoics still feel, they just don't let feelings lead. Think of emotions like the weather. Some days are sunny, some days stormy. You can't stop the rain, and you can't hold on to the sun forever. But you can decide how you'll walk through it or whether to carry an umbrella. That's the Stoic approach. Emotions will come and go, but your actions are what define you. When you're angry, you don't pretend you're not. You name it. This is anger. But instead of exploding and destroying everything, you pause, breathe, and choose to respond with reason. When you're sad, you don't force yourself into fake happiness. You allow yourself to cry, but afterward, you remind yourself to stand back up and keep moving forward. A Stoic is not a block of ice. A Stoic is someone whose heart still beats, but whose hands remain steady on the wheel. Choosing conscious action. The biggest difference with Stoicism is this: a Stoic chooses their actions consciously, instead of being dragged around by emotions. Think of your mind like a garden. If you leave it alone, weeds will take over and choke out everything else. But if you tend it, pull the weeds, water the soil, plant flowers, it becomes a place full of life. It's the same with emotions. They can flare up at any moment. But Stoicism gives you the tools to pause, observe, and then decide on an action rooted in your core values. For example, when someone insults you, instead of striking back immediately, you ask, what action reflects the kind of person I want to be when success comes your way? Instead of getting lost in self-satisfaction, you ask, how can I turn this into something lasting, rather than just a fleeting moment when suffering arrives? Instead of cursing fate, you ask, what can I learn from this experience? That is conscious awareness, the true foundation of a Stoic mind. A personal experience. Once, I was in a public debate. In the heat of the moment, an opponent made a personal jab at me, and the audience laughed. My heart raced, my face flushed. Inside, I wanted to snap back, to defend myself. But I remembered the Stoic lesson between stimulus and response. There is a space. In that space lies your freedom. I took a deep breath and let silence hang for a few seconds. Then, instead of retaliating, I calmly returned to the main point of the debate. The room went quiet, listening. Afterward, several people came up to shake my hand and said, "It was your calm that convinced us." That moment reminded me Stoicism didn't make me numb. It made me awake and intentional. Calm doesn't mean cold. Stoicism doesn't teach us to deny emotions. It teaches us to feel without being swept away, to love without clinging, to suffer without despair, to rejoice without arrogance. Calm isn't a cold wall. Calm is the ability to stand steady within your emotions and to act with intention, aligned with your values. And that is the true power of a Stoic living fully, but never letting emotion overpower reason. In the next part, and we're getting close to the end, I want to explore with you, how do we make Stoicism a long-term way of life? Not just a handful of techniques for coping in the moment, but a sustainable lifestyle that carries you through your entire life with depth, stability, and meaning. Part 7. Stoic Thinking and Peace in the Digital Age. We live in a unique era, the digital age, where everything moves faster than ever. News pouring in nonstop, social media blasting signals around the clock, your phone buzzing dozens of times in just 1 hour. If Marcus Aurelius were alive today, I think he might have written in Meditations something like this: "The human mind does not collapse from a lack of strength, but from being pulled apart by too many meaningless things." So how can a modern person busy, always online, constantly connected, still hold on to the peace of a Stoic? Let's walk through 3 keys. 1. Create quiet spaces in your day. Have you noticed how rare it is to have a real moment of silence? We open our eyes and grab the phone. We eat with a screen in front of us. We scroll one last time before we fall asleep. But Stoicism reminds us your mind needs quiet like your body needs air. Without it, you'll always be reacting instead of living with intention. Try building islands of silence into your day. 5 minutes in the morning without touching your phone, just breathing, noticing your body. A short walk in the middle of the workday without headphones. 10 minutes before bed to journal instead of endless scrolling. You'll be surprised those tiny pauses can clear your mind, sharpen your focus, and bring back clarity. 2. Set boundaries with technology and social media. Technology itself isn't bad. Social media isn't purely negative. The problem is, if you don't set boundaries, they'll consume your life. The ancient Stoics had a word, ataraxia, the stillness of the soul. In the digital age, to protect that stillness, you have to step outside the storm of information. A few simple but powerful practices. Turn off push notifications from apps that don't truly matter. Set no tech hours in your day, for example. No phones after 10 p.m. Curate your feed. Follow only sources that nourish your mind, not weigh it down. I've lived by these rules for years. And whenever I find myself slipping too deep into the digital world, I stop and ask, does this information actually serve my values, or is it just draining my energy? That single question is often enough to put the phone down and return to the present. 3. Manage your expectations. Let go of what you can't control. In the digital age, comparison and expectations multiply. Open Instagram and you'll see hundreds of perfect lives, people who seem more successful, wealthier, happier. Suddenly, you load your own shoulders with enormous pressure. I need to be like them. I need to run faster. I need to prove myself more. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Don't seek peace in controlling outcomes. Seek peace in controlling your effort and your attitude. You can't control social media algorithms. You can't force the whole world to validate your worth, but you can choose to work with focus, to stay kind in words and actions, to let go of the expectation that everything must go your way. I remember once I spent weeks preparing for an online event. On the day of, the system crashed. Hundreds of people couldn't even log in. At first, I was crushed with disappointment. But then I reminded myself, this is outside my control. What I can control is how I respond. So I recorded the talk separately and sent it personally to everyone who had signed up. In the end, instead of complaints, I received messages of gratitude for the extra effort. That's the paradox. When you let go of what you can't control, not only do you keep your peace, you often find wiser, better ways forward. A final note. The digital age isn't slowing down for us. It's only getting faster, louder, and more demanding. But you can still hold a stoic mind right here, right now. Protect small moments of silence throughout your day. Set boundaries with technology and social media so you don't get swept away. Manage your expectations and let go of what's outside your control. That's how you find peace in a digital world. And in the final part of this journey, I want to leave you with a closing message, not to shut a door, but to open a new one: Stoicism as an art of living, not just for today, but for an entire lifetime. Part 8, a final message. You can't control the world, but you can master your mind. If you've been with me from the beginning until now, you've probably realized an important truth. The world out there, loud, chaotic, unpredictable, has never truly been under our control. You can't make people always treat you fairly. You can't force life to unfold exactly the way you hoped. You can't stop loss, setbacks, or unwanted surprises. But there is one thing you can fully control: your own mind. Stoicism doesn't make you a robot. Some people think Stoicism turns you into a robot. No tears, no laughter, no feelings. The truth is the opposite. Stoicism doesn't teach you to shut emotions off. It teaches you to live with them without letting them rule your life. You still love, you still grieve, you still hurt, you still celebrate, but you learn to stand firm even when emotions flood in. Picture a sailor at sea. He can't stop the winds, he can't silence the waves, but he learns how to steer his ship through every storm. That is the Stoic, not a cold machine, but a human being with deep inner strength. The journey isn't easy, but it's worth living. I'll never tell you practice Stoicism and tomorrow everything will be different. No, Stoicism isn't a magic pill. It's a practice, a lifelong training. And yes, sometimes it's really hard. There will be days you fail to stay calm. There will be moments of anger, worry, or collapse. And that's okay. Even Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, admitted in his journals that every morning he had to remind himself, "Today I will meet people who are troublesome, selfish, arrogant." Even he, the man considered a master of Stoicism, had to practice day by day. What matters isn't whether you fail. What matters is whether you get back up and keep practicing. And it's that repetition day after day that weaves Stoicism into your very being. The closing thought. Peace is not a destination. Peace is the path you choose every single day. A common question. People sometimes ask me, when will I finally reach complete peace? And I usually smile and say, peace is not a destination, it's a path. You don't graduate from Stoicism after one course. There's no single day where a light switch flips and from then on you're forever calm. Instead, you'll experience small moments of awareness, moments when you choose silence over anger, when you choose to let go instead of clinging, when you choose reason instead of being swept away by emotion. Over time, those moments piece together into a life of peace. A sincere message. If you're still here with me right now, chances are you've been searching for something, maybe calm in the face of chaos, maybe strength under pressure, or maybe just a moment to breathe in this restless world. And I want to tell you, you are already on the right path. Stoicism doesn't promise a life without pain, but it gives you the strength to turn pain into the foundation of growth. It doesn't promise that storms will disappear, but it teaches you how to steer your ship through them. And above all, it gives you freedom, the freedom to stop trying to control everything and to focus on the one thing you truly hold in your hands: yourself. The closing thought. You can't control the world, but you can control your mind. You can't guarantee that others will always love, respect, or understand you, but you can guarantee that you live with integrity, calm, and compassion. And when you do that, you'll realize happiness doesn't come from conquering the world outside. It comes from mastering the world within. Remember this: peace is not a destination, it's the path you choose every single day. And I believe that when you walk the Stoic path, you won't just live stronger, you'll live deeper, more meaningful, more free. A final word. My friend, if you've stayed until the very end of this video, it means something inside you is longing for peace, for strength, or simply for a more meaningful life. And I want you to know you are not alone on this journey. Why you should walk this path together. Stoicism isn't a philosophy meant to gather dust in old libraries. It's a way of living, a discipline to be practiced daily, like training a muscle, like learning to breathe with intention. And to keep that practice alive, you need community, a place to remind you that you're not the only one learning how to master your mind. You're not the only one seeking calm in a digital world. You're not the only one walking through storms with a steady heart. That's what this channel, Living Stoic Way, is here for. An invitation. If today's message spoke to you, I invite you. Subscribe, not just to get more videos, but to remind yourself I've chosen to walk the Stoic path. Like, not just because you enjoyed it, but because every like helps this message of Stoicism reach others who need peace, just like you. Comment, share your story. When was the last time you stayed calm in the middle of chaos? Or what's the hardest thing for you to let go of right now? I'd love to read your story, and I know others will find comfort in it too. A question to carry with you. Before you leave this video, let me leave you with a question, one that might stay with you all day. If there's only one thing I can control right now, what is it? Answer in the comments, and keep that question in your heart so when life gets chaotic, you'll remember you still have a choice. A shared journey. Stoicism isn't a path of isolation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We were born to live together like hands working in harmony." In the same way, when you subscribe, like, and share, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're planting a seed of peace for the world. Let Living Stoic Way be part of your journey. And remember, each video isn't just a lecture, it's a dialogue between you and me, between you and your own mind. So if you're ready, hit subscribe now. And I promise, we'll meet again on the road ahead where Stoicism isn't just philosophy, but the art of living for a lifetime.